In 2019, a cowboy named Ben Tyner rode out from the ranch he worked at in British Columbia. Nothing unusual about that. He was apparently just checking on some cattle. He took his horse, a pack, and his rifle, and left everything else behind, and then vanished. His saddled horse turned up 2 days later on a snowy road. No sign of Ben, no tracks, no gear, no rifle, no explanation. At first, people thought maybe it was an accident, the kind that can happen in the backcountry, maybe an animal attack, maybe an accident, falling off the horse. But over time, the details started feeling off. And now, years later, the police are calling it a homicide. They're not giving any suspects, no arrests, no real answers. This is the story of Ben Tyner. And even if you don't normally follow missing person cases, this one I think will stick with you. Ben Tyner was originally from Wyoming. He was a ranch guy. He grew up with horses and cattle. He grew up with the whole life. He was quiet. He was competent. He's the kind of person that knows how to stay alive in rough terrain and cold weather. He moved to Merritt, British Columbia for a job managing the Nicola Ranch. It's a huge spread in the interior of the province. Big land, it has harsh winters. It's pretty remote. He'd only been there for a few months when this happened, but the locals said he was settling in well. He didn't party, he didn't cause much trouble. He just worked and kept to himself. On January 26, 2019, Ben left the ranch in the late afternoon. It was weird timing, especially if you're heading out to check on stray cattle. That's not something you start at sundown in the winter. He didn't take his dog, he didn't take his phone. According to his family, he usually gave people a heads up and rarely left without those things. So he rides out, and that's it. No one hears from him again. 2 days later, on the 28th, his horse, still saddled, was found wandering on a remote road. It's well outside the ranch property, and it strangely is across a highway that doesn't really have safe crossing spots for someone on foot or on horseback. The area was covered in fresh snow. There were no tracks, no sign of Ben, nothing dropped or broken, just a healthy horse walking around in the cold. And from that point, theories started to come in. The search was serious. There were helicopters, there were dogs, people on horseback. Nothing turned up, though. There was no hat, no rifle, no body. The weird thing was no footprints, especially with the fresh snow. There's also no blood that would indicate like an animal attacking. There was no damage to the saddle. So you'd expect something, right? Some clues that points one way or the other, but there was nothing. And that silence kind of went on for years. So here's where it all shifts. 2 years leading up to Ben's appearance, 4 or 5 people went missing in the same area. Not to say that they're connected, but it's not a common thing to happen either. And then 2 weeks before he vanished, Ben was actually interviewed by the national news about a local church fire. Someone had burned it down. No one ever got charged, and the case is still open. Again, there's no confirmed connection, but the timeline's kind of weird. In 2022, out of nowhere, the RCMP, which is sort of like the Canadian FBI, they released a statement saying that they now believe Ben Tyner was murdered. They didn't give any explanation or evidence. They didn't provide any suspects. That was just one line. We now believe Ben Tyner was murdered. So now the story shifts again. It's no longer that a guy gets lost in the woods. Now it's something darker. But what makes it feel especially uneasy is how clean that everything was. There was no confrontation or evidence, no sign of a struggle. Just a guy that disappeared, just vanished. So, what might have happened? If it was an accident, like he fell or broke something, his remains would probably be found eventually. People hunt out there, there's ranchers, scavengers might have scattered the body, but the bones would still be there. It's happened before in the area. A guy went missing locally and he wasn't found for nearly a year, but he turned up in the river eventually. If it was murder, that opens up a whole new picture. There are millions of acres of backcountry out there, so a body could go missing and would be found. There's steep ravines and hidden lakes. The forest is pretty dense too. And then in the middle of winter, when the ground's frozen, you don't need to bury someone, you just need to drag them far enough out. So maybe Ben Tyner had enemies. Maybe he stumbled into something he wasn't supposed to. Or maybe someone just saw a chance and knew the terrain well enough to make sure the truth would never come out. Whatever happened, nobody's talking. And years later, we're still left with a horse wandering through the snow and a man who just disappeared. No closure, no real suspects, just a big open question mark.